It's expected a large section of the Green Lewis line in Dublin won't reopen until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Ciara Egan from Transdev says engineers are still working to identify the source of the problem.
Due to power failure in the Stillorgan area, Lewis Green Line services are currently running between Broombridge and Ballally only. There's no Lewis service between Ballally and Brides Glen, so an alternative coach service is serving affected stops, and Dublin Bus are accepting Lewis tickets for the duration of the disruption.
That's it for now. All news updates are on our website. That's newstalk.com.
Newstalk weather.
Thanks to the AA, you can find our lowest car insurance price online, guaranteed.
Mild with rain and drizzle in the west, gusty southerly winds, locally strong at times, with top temperatures of 9 to 12 degrees. Now you're up to date on Newstalk.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
All right, you're very welcome back. OTB Football Saturday with you from 3 o'clock until 5 this evening. 3 Premier League games just underway. Newcastle against Everton, Southampton versus Crystal Palace, and Watford versus Aston Villa. We'll bring you all the goals as they go in between now and 5 o'clock. We'll also bring you team news for those 2 later games at 5:30. Norwich against Spurs, as well as West Ham versus Leicester. And then later on this evening, to round off the day's action, Burnley host Manchester United at 7:45. All of our football coverage is brought to you with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. We're streaming at the moment as well. You can hear us on OTB Sports Radio, on the Go Loud app, and also you can watch us at the moment as well on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at Off the Ball at YouTube. And we're also streaming across Twitter as well and on Facebook. Get your comments into us if you want to text us 53106 or leave a comment on any of our social channels, and we'll get through them throughout the afternoon. With me for the next 2 hours is Shane Keegan and Johnny Ward, straight off the bus from Leopardstown. Johnny?
It's buzzing out there. The big race is 5 minutes away, but I just couldn't turn you down. Couldn't turn you down.
You're too professional.
Too professional, yeah. Where's my colleague today? Where is he?
You tell us. You tell us. Did you see him in your travels down in South Dublin?
No comment.
No comment at all.
He's not even a racing journalist.
He's not. So it's a complete jolly down there, is it?
It's a jolly.
No such thing as friends in the media, is there?
No, he was.
He was a non-runner earlier in the week, which I had assumed to mean.
In dire need of a winner, I think he was telling me anyway.
Not going well, was he now?
I think most punters are struggling. I think the sponsors of this show are having a much better time than the punters. There have been some disappointing runs, but it's been great. There's been a great buzz out there because the weather's been very favourable as well. Like, it's very mild today. It's like lovely weather. It's not even jacket weather, and everyone's just cranking up now for the 310, which is Ken Boyne presenting Percy, which will be very, very interesting because we've 2 of the proper Irish Gold Cup horses taking each other on.
It's not even jacket weather, he says, as he struts into the place in his big black overcoat.
That was.
Well, he looked very warm, in fairness, when he walked in.
I did. It is mild.
Too warm.
It is mild.
He's looking underdressed at the moment, anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah, you've gone to Shane. You've
pretty much always underdressed, I think, Johnny. Really,
you've been a regular fixture on the show, though. You've stepped into the breach when either of us isn't.
And it's
kind of like a Divock Origi type character.
Normally, you must have been getting nervous that you made such an effort to get yourself here today, were you?
Yeah, it was just when John Duggan was saying, like, as it will be from evermore, it'll be me and Shane Keegan, and just this notion of you being here every Saturday was kind of worrying. But good times for Irish football, actually. It was
a good couple. Now, I think there's only one Irish player starting in the 3 o'clock kickoffs. It's Conor Howard for Aston Villa. Seamus Coleman's on the Everton bench, and Shane Duffy obviously started this morning. There are, though, like, a lot of players on the benches, and players have been rotated in and out, like Aaron Connolly there this morning for Brighton.
9 Irish goal scorers on Stevens' day.
Was there? Across the Premiership and Championship?
Across the 4 divisions.
Oh, the 4 divisions.
Just Stevens' day.
There were
and then throw Matt Doherty in on top of that, brings it up to 10, but 9
the way
on Stevens' day is fair going, isn't it?
You never hear, like, he's a very cultured right foot, but we all love somebody with a cultured left foot. Somebody that
you can't have a cultured right foot.
Just can't. So we had 4 really prominent, like, left-footed Irish players, including Obafemi, if you want to call him. He's a young lad scoring lovely left-footed goals. I don't know what your favourite of the 4 was.
Obafemi's, I thought, was brilliant.
I think as a centre back, like, it's kind of a nightmare trying to defend a lad who's like such a low centre of gravity, but he's very quick. I suppose, like, Obafemi is potentially Ireland's 4th choice under 21 striker at the moment. Like, genuinely could be behind Afolabi. You could even say he's behind Afolabi, Connolly, Ida and Parrott, if you want to put it that way. I think he actually might be, yet he started for Southampton and scored at Stamford Bridge.
The only games he's been getting at 21's level has been on the wings, because as Johnny says, he can't get in at centre forward. But I just thought it went from zero danger to he's like through on goal here in the space of like 1 second, which was what was really, really impressive, because he had an awful, it didn't look like a goal scoring opportunity when he received it, and then the next thing, a couple of superb touches and twists of his body, and brilliant finish, and to pick it out as well, wasn't it?
And I just think Mick McCarthy, and I suppose to a greater extent Stephen Kenny, because he's going to be there afterwards, will enjoy the Christmas dinner, I think, and just think that we have a lot to look forward to here. I think past Irish managers, I was thinking of this. There was some English commentator the other day just talking about the Irish team and what they've been like to watch, and I think we've probably, in the narrative of how people view us across Europe and across maybe the British Isles, we're not viewed as a team that's very enjoyable to watch for some time. But I think the future's very bright. I think Stephen Kenny did a very interesting interview in The Athletic, in which Dan actually had a few quotes in it, and he was at pains not to tread on Mick McCarthy's territory, because it's very difficult for him, and that came through in the article. But what also came through was his main point, that just because we're Irish doesn't mean we can't play. And I think what Irish team he takes over, as much as, and Dan was making this point in the piece, it's not going to be an overnight thing. I think in 2 years' time we'll be watching an Irish team that we'd be proud to say is my Irish team.
Yeah, your former colleagues who are now over at Second Captains, they had a night there about 2 weeks ago as well, where Stephen was the guest of honour. I was at it, and it's just, when he's finished talking, you just feel like taller as an Irishman, or more proud as an Irishman. And look, obviously there's actually, in Stephen's case, I was going to say there's a certain amount of playing to the gallery there. There's probably not in Stephen's case. I really don't think he's ever really done that. It's not his. It's not his thing to be a cheerleader. He's just saying what he thinks, and then that happens to kind of sound like he's cheerleading almost.
He's very humble as well, and I suppose you know as well, Shane, that the man management stuff and the rousing speeches can only get you so far. But I think this point has been made. I think Dane Massey had an article over the Christmas where he was saying Kenny would know how to get them going ahead of a Legia Warsaw game, but equally if they were playing Longford away the following weekend, he'd have a completely different attitude. And I think he will approach that the same way in the Ireland games, that you kind of, each game is different. But I think his background team
has that been an issue with Ireland in the last few years, that the game at home against Gibraltar is almost treated as
well, I would argue
one of the bigger games.
I would argue that Ireland's chances going into every international are pretty much the exact same, regardless of who the opposition are. It's probably always going to be
a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw, more than likely going to be a 1-1 draw, or a marginal win or a marginal defeat, and that applies whether we're playing Germany or Gibraltar, which is just mental, but it is the case.
Well, I suppose if you're looking at real positives, Darragh O'Shea came on what was that? Just before Christmas, we've had a goal here.
We have Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Player in form.
Darragh O'Shea is a player.
As is the case that we're going to have to wait a couple of minutes for all these checks to happen before we can actually bring you a report to see if it's gone in.
Darragh O'Shea came on for West Brom, and I think Kenny really, really likes him as a centre-back and a kind of a ball-playing centre-back as well. Ryan Manning is doing very well. So you've all these players that might even be on the fringes, kind of prospering at the moment, and Conor Horan's enjoying a real... Conor Horan is doing stuff for Villa. Now, if you're watching Grealish the other night, I mean, there was obviously a large party that's thinking, oh my God, imagine if this lad were actually declared for Ireland.
We're not past that.
But anyway, that's by the by. Horan is playing some really good stuff for Villa, and he hasn't shown it for Ireland, and I hope under Kenny he might.
The interesting one on that, I suppose, looking at the kind of more immediate, and I know we've jumped to Stephen Kenny, but coming back to Mick, I mean, two things have happened there in the last 24 hours that are... for very, very different reasons, going to give Mick McCarthy food for thought, and that's obviously Matt Doherty again last night. He just keeps doing it, doesn't he?
Nathan's tweet was interesting. I don't know if you saw it. He called out Mick McCarthy for making such a judgment on that Gibraltar game. Yeah. That basically said it was a bad decision, that he was on the bench.
Judging it on one half against Gibraltar in those conditions. They were awful conditions to be playing any match in.
Good players did not. A scatter of good players played badly on that occasion for a reason.
And I see again the kind of a social media conversation going around the need maybe to switch to the three at the back, to maybe try and accommodate the two of them again. I said that from day one, but I also said from day one that I can't see it ever happening. I really don't think it'll ever happen.
Kenny's not going to play three at the back.
Well, I'm talking about Mick at the moment in more immediate games.
That's not going to happen.
But the other thing that happened, I don't know if you copped, was not even going to attempt his name, but the newish Hearts manager has said Glenn Whelan's time is finished at Hearts.
I did see that this morning. Yeah.
So that has big repercussions for us. I mean, what's going to happen there? You know, is he going to be able to get out of there in January and therefore still get games before the qualifiers, or is he going to be stuck there on the bench between now and then? And you know, it's very, very important, because while certain football purists might turn their nose up at him, he's essentially been our best centre midfielder for this campaign.
Absolutely. I think Mick will be very much encouraging to get a job as quickly as he can, but hopefully Malumbi's progress continues as well, because he seems to be doing very well with Sean Williams at Millwall, and I'd imagine playing alongside Sean Williams is great for his development as well. And he's a player that I know is very, very highly regarded. It's criminal that Glenn has been so important for us. Not that Glenn hasn't been good, but it's like we should have better midfielders than that, and we should have Hendrick and Horan playing better than they are for Ireland. I don't really know why, but they don't look the players they are for their clubs.
The last comment from on Irish internationals. Congratulations to Sean Maguire, who got engaged yesterday as well. So
good stuff.
So he's had a good Christmas as well. His tackle in the build up to the Preston goal the other day. Actually,
I didn't actually.
What a tackle!
That's a thinly veiled, by the way. I'm mates with Shawnee, and I know that he got engaged. Yeah. But he's a diamond of a lad.
Absolutely.
And he was another lad I thought was a bit gypped by the whole Gibraltar thing, in that Shawnee had a poor game against Gibraltar, but at the same time, you'd forgive anyone again.
Yeah, the only thing you'd say there is, right, he had a poor game against Gibraltar. He didn't start the next one, but Dave McGoldrick came in, and Dave McGoldrick's been excellent since.
Yeah.
Like I in that first game, I almost wanted Dave McGoldrick to do poorly so that Shawnee get back in. But I mean, you could have no arguments. Dave McGoldrick's been absolutely fantastic since finding
McGoldrick or Randolph have been our two most important players, I think.
Okay, we're going to go take our first update of the day. We'll try to get you that goal from St James's Park when we can. It did stand Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring, so Everton lead 1-0 against Newcastle. That's the game we're watching in front of us. They've dominated the opening 15 minutes or so. But we are going to take an update, first of all, from Vicarage Road, where Watford are hosting Aston Villa. And with the latest from that 15 minutes in, we can hear from Andrew Cheal.
0, Aston Villa 0. Decent start by the home side. Lots of spark in their attack. Grealish and Lansbury much to the fore in midfield. Troy Deeney with an early snapshot with his right foot from about 10 yards out, parried by Heaton, although in fairness it was straight at him. We've also seen Deulofeu wasting a promising break for Watford with a poor final ball. He had Capoue clear in the centre forward position. For Villa, Grealish is running down the left-hand side very effectively. I found himself a free kick down by the corner flag, but it came to nothing. And it's Watford 0, Aston Villa 0.
Yeah, so scoreless between Watford and Aston Villa. Everton 1-0 up on Newcastle through Dominic Calvert-Lewin's goal. Southampton and Crystal Palace, the other 3 o'clock game, that is still scoreless as well. Now, we'll probably get into, I suppose, the big story of last night, which was Man City beating, Wolves beating Man City 3-2 last night, coming from 2-0 down, and Matt Doherty's brilliant winner in the 89th minute as well. But just to tee all that up, because of the repercussions it has on the Premier League title race, or what's left of a title race, if there is anything left, Liverpool now 13 points clear with a game in hand over Leicester. City were unable to cut into that lead last night. And yesterday I spoke to Pat Nevin looking back on that game against Leicester, and as he was saying, it looks like the title is definitely over now. Pat, at what stage do we stop talking about a title race and actually just start asking how far Liverpool can go this year and what they can actually go on and achieve?
Well, it kind of should be the latter now, purely because they just don't seem to slip. I mean, there's that, one draw so far in the league and the rest of it's wins. And against Leicester, that was absolutely brilliant. That was absolutely stunning, the way they sliced them apart. Every single player moving really well, playing with extreme confidence as well. You keep on looking for reasons why it might not keep on going, tiredness, injury, suspension, you name it. Lots of different things, bad luck, you name it. But that's just saying if that sort of happens. The more likely if is you go along roughly as it's going just now and they hammer the league. That's the more likely. And it really is that now, because you can't see them losing that amount of games in this period of time, because there's nobody who's really that good. The Man City are going to be a tough game. You look at Leicester was supposed to be about the toughest game you get, especially away from home, absolutely trashed them. And okay, I don't think they'll win every game between now and the end of the season. There might be the odd draw here and there. But one of the stats that jumped out at me, last season Liverpool in the league, they won 9 games by a single goal. You know, they ground out 9 games by a single goal, right? They've already done it 8 times in the league this season. So even when they're not playing well, they are managing and figuring out how to grind the game out and then, you know, take the foot off the gas slightly and just be comfortable, you know, seeing it through to the end. They're a team that's, although they maybe not always looking prettier in the eye just now, they're actually a better team because they're harder to beat now and they are a more professional looking side. I don't think they're quite as beautiful in the eye as they were before. Yesterday, accepted, but it doesn't matter. They got to go and win this, and I cannot see how they can lose this.
And like as you were saying there, you know, the odd little stumble will come on the road with injuries or suspensions or whatever, but like they kind of already have had to deal with a few of those, maybe not massive ones. Like Alisson missed a big chunk of the first half of the season, and after a couple of maybe stumbles in the games shortly afterwards, they found a way around it. Fabinho's been out at the moment. Jordan Henderson's kind of doing that role perfectly fine at the moment. They have had, you know, Roberto Firmino probably looked out of form for a little while. He's just found it again in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Mo Salah looked a bit off for a little while. He found it all over again. Like, when they have had, I suppose, when individual players have had problems, they've just kind of found a way to work things around it.
I've never worried about the midfield. It's okay, they've got plenty. They'll probably get 2 to 3 backup players there that will do exactly the same jobs. Slightly different, but they can do the jobs. It's fine. You worry about Salah if it's a longer period of time, but in actual fact, after a while now, you're right. He's had that blip, he's had that injury, and he's come back. They managed it. And then you just keep on looking at the back. Now, Van Dijk is the only one that I would have been concerned about if I was them now. I'm beginning to look at the likes of, you know, Alexander-Arnold and think, you know what? You'd stick him in there, he'd almost do the same job. He is that good at reading the play in so many different positions. You know, they've got centre-backs that they can play there, yeah, fine. But in extremis, they can move people around, and I think they're perfectly capable of doing it. So I'd give up on it now if I was them. They just need to have a monstrous loss of form. Just doesn't look like it. And they haven't, you know, I've been down at Anfield a few times this season when they haven't played well, and they've won the game. They are a joy when they play brilliantly, but at the moment, they are the best team, definitely, in the UK. And, you know, everybody in the UK after that World Club Championship saying they're the best team in the world. Funny, nobody said that when an English team wasn't in it. Strange that, isn't it? But as soon as an English team was in it, everybody's saying it every 2 seconds. Except they're probably right this time.
Yeah.
And they are probably right this time.
And they certainly are, yeah. Last night's game against Leicester, I mean, it was just relentless, really. There was maybe a few minutes midway through the second half when I think Alisson made a little bit of a half mistake, and they just kind of, you know, Leicester just kind of built up a bit of steam. But the penalty obviously killed it off once it was 2-0. Liverpool cruised away after that. But specifically, Trent Alexander-Arnold, someone you spoke about couple of minutes ago there, he was just again on another level last night.
Yeah, and everywhere you look, he was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal last night. For every part of the pitch that he seemed to walk into, he seemed to be really comfortable, and he was doing great things all the way through the game. But you think about Robertson, what he had been like last season, he was creating unbelievable amounts of chances. You know, Alexander-Arnold is doing the same now. It's an incredible number of chances and goals that he's creating just now. And that's only your fullbacks. You look everywhere. It seems, the odd thing about it, it looks easy now. You think, well, why doesn't everyone organise their team like that? Kind of handy to have right good players who are really specifically good in those areas. He walks onto it and he played absolutely brilliantly yesterday. But if I was playing against Liverpool, I mean, back in the time when I used to play against them, they were probably the best team in Europe at that time. And you would play against them, and you were stuck. You were absolutely stuck because A, they kept the ball brilliantly. You know, the Anfield particularly, they had the best and the flattest pitch in the league in the time. They zipped the ball around, so you hardly get a kick, right? But if you put them under a bit of pressure, they were even more dangerous because their breaking pace was absolutely stupidly good. And I'm looking at the Liverpool team now, and it's exactly the same. They'll have periods of time, like you mentioned there, they're bombarding you, they're They're coming from the right, the left, from full back, from the centre forward. The centre backs are coming back up for headers and corners. Everywhere you look, they've got a threat. And then you put them under a bit of pressure. My God, they're unbelievable when they're under pressure, because Firmino is amazing when he gets the ball. They don't make mistakes when they break. When they break, they always find players. They've got players that can do that odd thing that not many can do. They run just as fast with the ball as they do without it. And it's a really unusual thing. Mane does it, certainly Salah does it as well. They are amazing at the moment, and just every part of their game is a joy to watch at the moment. And I just don't really see how you stop it.
Yeah, and like as you were saying there, like you don't really know how you go about stopping it. From what I can see, it seems like the way they play, you know exactly what they're going to do. And I think that's the most difficult thing. It's not trying to figure out what are Liverpool going to be doing today. It's how on earth do you actually stop it?
Yeah.
Because their strengths are obvious. It's so hard to actually deal with it.
Well, a lot of the time it's kind of thing that Man City did a few years ago, right? So you mark up, you match up, you overcover, right? But if David Silva takes around 2 or 3 players, or Sterling takes around 2 or 3, drags you're stuffed. Because it's just a very old-fashioned thing of pace and dribbling. You go by people, you drag people out of positions, but you must have then the vision to find out where that space is. Now, that was maybe the problem with most teams. You can get somebody who'll go by to a couple of players or whatever and drag everyone out of position. But they can't see that ball 40 yards away, and they can't get their head up, and they don't have the vision to do it. Liverpool have got players all over the place that can do that, everywhere in the pitch. So if you look at Alexander-Arnold goes down the line and goes by 2 or 3, or Salah drags 2 or 3 towards him, they'll then find the player who is then made free by that. And it's kind of not that complicated to explain that's what they're doing. You try and stop it, because you cannot leave 1-on-1 with Salah. Because if you leave 1-on-1 with Salah, you're stuffed. If you leave 1-on-1 with any of the forwards, you're probably stuffed. And as soon as somebody breaks that line and pulls your players out of possession, you're wobbling. As soon as he's beaten 2, you're stuffed. There's nothing you can do, because everyone's out of position and there's one guy free, and they always find that guy.
How good a chance do you think they have of actually going on and matching the 100 points that City put up a couple of years ago? Because looking at it now, 52 points after 18 games, so they'd need 48 more points from 20 games. So that's 48 from 60 on offer, which the way that it looks pretty realistic.
It certainly does. You always keep on saying it's unlikely, but every week they go with another game. It's less and less unlikely. And I'd have said, 6 weeks ago, I doubt it. And you're saying now, and I'm thinking, decent chance. Ask me in a month again, they'll say they're going to do it. Because that's the way it is just now. You can't see the kind of weaknesses. You can't see the fallout. The possibility, the one thing that could stop them doing that is if you keep on going on the Champions League and you've basically got the league won by April, well, you throw a few. You just throw in a couple of kids and you might lose a couple of games. And although you'd love to get to the 100 points, kind of so what if you don't, as long as you've got the league won. And that's the way they will think about it. So I suspect the thing that's going to stop them is themselves and their own success.
Yeah, Pat and Evan there saying the only thing that might stop Liverpool is themselves. It's probably not going to be Man City anymore based on last night. Shane, you were watching that last night. What happened for a start?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose obviously you have the whole game is coloured by the early sending off, which in itself was madness. I mean, that's a bad error of judgment by Ederson. It really, really is. I mean, it's 2 bad errors of judgment. The decision to come was a really poor decision, and then I'd argue once he gets there and once he's caught in no man's land and knows he's not going to get to the ball, well, I don't know, what would you rather be 1-0 down and have 11 players, or would you rather be 0-0 and be down to 10 players?
Obviously, 10 minutes
obviously it's dependent on the point in the game. Exactly. I would say, as the manager, I would be hoping the keeper would let him go around him and put the ball.
This is this goes back to Shamrock Rovers and Bows in that pivotal game at Tala, where basically this was very interesting because Trevor Clark made a tackle right on the edge of the box. And it brought the new ruling into kind of under scrutiny because Trevor Clark was sent off So Bowes had a man extra. But if Trevor Clark's, and it was literally on the line of the penalty area, so if Trevor Clark's tackle had been inside the box, he can't get sent off for that because it was a legitimate attempt to win the ball. So that's a yellow card within the box now. But no doubt Shamrock Rovers would have been better 1-0 down, 11v11 at that stage of the game. And that's the thing. And actually, if you ever look at in-running betting and how it works for moments like that, a red card just changes everything. Like, it's completely, everything is lopsided.
So that said, I would imagine if any team are still going to be favourites while only having 10 men,
City.
you'd imagine City possibly. I didn't see what the betting and running was, but it would have been interesting to see in the immediate aftermath of that what way they had it priced up in that. It
hasn't been right with City for some time though, and you know the stats of their kind of pressing game haven't gone down so much, and how poor they were against Liverpool, how poor they were against Manchester United. You know, in the big games this season in general, they've to me they haven't looked anywhere near the side they were. And
well, the alarming one last night. Granted, as we say, they played 80 minutes with 10 men.
Yep.
Wolves had 61% possession.
Yep.
Against the Pep Guardiola's Man City.
Pretty much at 2/3 of the ball. And
wasn't it the Chelsea game was the first game in I think years where Man City had less possession than the opposition.
Yeah. But yeah, and the thing about last night, I'd argue, Neil, was that it wasn't so much that the comeback was the surprise. It was that City had gone 2-0 up was the surprise. Now, you'd say, well, sure, obviously they only had 10 men, but it's City. Like, I would have said that's kind of a 50-50 game, 10v11 at that. But, well, firstly, I thought the change was strange. Now, maybe, I suppose Pep's thinking is Aguero's only just back. Is he going to be able for 80 minutes where a man down to put in a shift? But like, I automatically thought it would have to be Mahrez. I was sure it would be Mahrez that would come out. So I thought that choice to leave him there and
do you
and
see
pull
from
Aguero.
body language that Pep's, like we saw his kind of spat with Aguero earlier on the season, is Pep's hold on that kind of bunch of players gone or on the wane? Or
I'm always whenever an early change happens or any kind of an enforced change like that happens, I'm always looking to see is there any chance, like, is there going to be a row here as the player comes off? It's immediately what you think, isn't it? From the minute the goalkeeper got sent off, my thoughts are, one, he has an awful decision to make here as to who he's going to take out, and two, be really interesting to see, given that, you know, everything isn't rosy in the camp, do they kind of kick up? But no, in fairness to Sergio Aguero, he came off, he high-fived him, he high-fived all the rest of the team. He didn't seem to have an issue with it, so he didn't. But, I mean, De Bruyne then obviously has to go an awful lot deeper as well, so he does. And, like, they were 2-0 up without deserving to be 2-0 up at all. And then throw in, I'll tell you who's the most interesting discussion point from last night, because I just can't wrap my head around how it's changed so much. Adama Traore. He was absolutely outstanding last night. He was outstanding in the previous game and he's on a run at the moment where over the last 3-4 games, he's like, if you would only saw the last 3-4 games, you would say this guy must be in the top 5 players in the Premier League. And it's an interesting one because you're watching him a long time, and up until now, and he may go back to type, but up until now, if you watch him, and he hadn't even been getting regular starts, but even if he came on with 20 minutes left, even in a 20-minute period, he will either be the best player on the field or the worst player. He will be. There is no middle ground with this man, and obviously he is an absolute unit. He is a unit. But if those 20 minutes where he did do really well, I remember I was thinking, if he could develop that into 90 minutes, or now he's gone 90,
or at least tell me when you're going to play well, you know.
what a player he could be, and he was outstanding last night.
I do remember it was like the second game of the season when United went to Wolves and Matt Doherty got injured early on in that game. Traore came on and he was absolutely brilliant, and he was good for a couple of games after as well, and we actually were wondering, was Doherty going to get in?
Doherty did lose his place to him
for a little while,
but that was in a different position. Exactly. That's when they were playing 3-5-2, whereas now, which meant there was only room for one of the two of them, they've now switched that again, so it's a 3-4-3, and now you're really getting it, because obviously his defensive stuff is...
So he's only 23
Are you saying Nuno Espirito Santo has accommodated Matt Doherty and a player and a player who was in a similar position to him?
Anybody with a similar headache?
But we'll come back to that in a second. I just want to get a couple more updates. We're going to start at Vicarage Road again. Watford against Crystal Palace. Andrew Cheal.
Watford 0, Aston Villa 0. Villa within inches of going ahead just a second or two ago. Hourihane with a lovely curling cross from the left-hand side, and centre forward Wesley got up with a powerful header, did everything right, headed it down towards the goal line. Ben Foster in the Watford goal brought on an absolutely brilliant save, and to keep the score level. At the other end, we've had a Dale Lafayette run, jinking and jiving towards the dead ball line, where he got a fine cross in, but it was forced away for a corner. But Villa almost taking the lead a minute or so ago, saved by Ben Foster. It's Watford 0, Aston Villa 0.
And also an update to bring you from St James's Park, where Everton still lead Newcastle. Watching that one for us is Stephen Goldsmith.
Newcastle 0, Everton 1, the away side lead, but the home side really starting to knock on the door for an equaliser now. In fact, they thought they'd levelled when Andy Carroll fired home a shot rebounded off the post, but he was comfortably offside, so they remain behind. Everton took the lead when Dominic Calvert-Lewin stabbed the ball home from close range after the ball found its way to him from an Everton free kick that the home crowd heavily contested. But the away side lead here, Newcastle 0, Everton 1.
So before we got those updates, we were chatting about Adama Traore and I suppose Matt Doherty as well in Wolves. On Traore as well, though, you were talking about how good he was last night. For Wolves' equaliser, you had the situation, ball was trickling down towards over the dead ball line, or over the goal line, I should say.
Yep.
I had my rugby hat on there for a second. But ball was trickling out the line. And Benjamin Mendy was just trying to kind of shepherd it out. Adama Traore comes in and just shoves him in the back. Now, Mendy tried to stay on his feet. Traore picks up the ball, passes it across, and Raúl Jiménez scores. If Benjamin Mendy goes down, he is 100% getting a free kick. Is that sort of thing the reason footballers dive?
Yeah, that's the argument, I suppose. But I mean, Mendy's, it's hard to have any sympathy for Mendy there. Like, he really, really didn't cover himself in glory. I mean, he's not exactly the smallest. It's not like Traore was shoving Johnny off the ball or anything. Like, you know, he's a big fella himself, so he is. He's got, actually, there's a player who's done the reverse to Traore. There's a player who I thought when he came at first looked a real good player, whereas now we are just waiting for the mistake all the time with him. But look, it was impressive. 14 points Wolves have picked up this season from losing positions. It's the highest of any club in the Premier League. They're now sitting, what, 5th or 6th?
They're 5th, I think,
at the moment.
He's doing
just 2 points back from
job.
They went over Spurs and Sheffield United and Manchester United as well with that win. They're now up to 5th. Just 2 points back from Chelsea, who are in 4th place.
I think Wolves and Sheffield United, the positions, like some of the bigger clubs where they are compared to some of the smaller clubs. The point you make, though, I've said that for years. If you ride a challenge that is a foul in any day of the week, if you ride a challenge, you generally don't get a free, and you generally don't get a penalty. Yeah. And I think that's one thing referees need to be really conscious of, is reward the honesty of a player, because as much as we hate simulation, it's kind of like a statistical game at times. Like when I played football, it was always like, if I'm foul, I'll kind of try to make the most of it, because I want to get a free, but I'll never dive. But at the same time, you shouldn't be rewarded for you shouldn't be punished for staying on your feet.
And the thing with him, like, again, like, genuinely, if he, because obviously Wolves were really, really good last year, but he pretty much featured little to nothing last year. He adds a whole new kind of weapon to them completely. And if he can't stay in that form, but if he kind of stays, you know, reasonably in and around that form, I mean, just to try and show that I'm not overplaying it, I'm looking here, right? So if I've got a winger in a game, if say when I was managing League Ireland, if I had a winger, I would say to the winger, right, I want you to take that full back on the next 4 times you get the ball, okay? Providing you're doing it in the right area, providing you're doing it in the final third of the field, I'll accept you losing the ball 3 times if you manage to go past them once and get to the dead ball line, because that's all it takes. That one time he gets the dead ball line could be the goal, all right? Adama Traore last night, 12 attempted 1v1 take-ons, 10 successful. I mean, that's ridiculous. He was, like, the next highest was De Bruyne with 3. Like, he was absolutely ripping them to shreds. He was fantastic, so he was. Just so exciting to watch.
Get into your mindset there. So why are you instructing a winger on how you want it to play? Is because the winger needs a little bit of... You're an earful, or is it that you don't rate the fullback, or is it like...
Well, no, in general, I just think there's nothing worse than a safe winger. Do you know, it's really... Obviously, not all wingers are wingers, or not all players you put in wide areas are wingers. But if you've got a heels to the touchline winger, you want him to know that if he gets the ball twice and takes his fullback on twice and fails to go past him, you don't want him thinking, I may play the simple pass the next time. To my mind, you want him going at him again.
It's the one position in the game that's become... So you look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's as much a winger as he's a defender. So the role of the modern game now is, which obviously it's, I suppose, mainly the 4-5-1 or the 4-3-3, is that the two fullbacks attack a lot, an awful lot of play goes through the middle. But the old style winger that we used to remember, the likes of the Ryan Giggs, they're kind of gone. Like you don't play 4-4-2 much anymore. So it's like it's the one position that I think has suffered most with the way the game has evolved.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's kind of an obsession with winning the battle in the centre of the field, isn't there? And that's why you see so many kind of either inverted wingers or essentially number 10s, but playing at 7 and 11 and been told to wander into that area. Now, the other reason that you might do it, in fairness, is, for example, although Ozil, the game we were chatting just off air before we come on about Ozil's impact the other day and how he was remarkably improved for a good period of the game for Arsenal. That central area of the field, sometimes when you put a 10 in that central area of the field, well, now the opposition 6 can just go, right, you're playing 10, I'm playing 6, and I'm going to cancel you out and I'm going to try and nullify you now. Whereas if that 10 kind of player plays 7 or 11 and is told to wander into that space, it can be far, far harder for the 6 to pick him up. And I think that's why you see an awful lot of wingers been sacrificed for a player who is going to wander into that area, because teams are obsessed with trying to win it in that area of the field. When Ozil was getting on the ball in central areas the other day, he was absolutely brilliant. First 25 minutes, he was the best player on the pitch by a country mile. And I have no doubt whatsoever that Eddie Howe, because I was commentating on the game, and what I said at the time was Eddie Howe must be praying for half time so that he can get his players in and explain to Ndidi what he needs them to do on Ozil. In fairness, he managed to do it midway through the half, which is very, very good. I don't know whether there was a break in play or what, but there was a clear change in how Ndidi conducted himself for the first 20 and the next 25.
I forgot this was your co-commentating debut, was it?
Yeah, it was.
And debut steered remarkably well by David McIntyre. Fair play to him.
How did it go?
Yeah, it was good. It was a decent game, so it was, and enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's good to see the man is progressing in the media world.
Yeah, another string to the bow, Johnny.
Yeah,
another thing I can be bad at.
A few
it's like the longer he's good at the media, the further he'll be out of a job. Who knows, though?
He'll be on the Goals on Sunday couch soon enough for the Premier League.
with Kirby
slapping his knee at all the banter. Some text coming in. Always liked Wolves as a club, and they knew about good Irish full-backs, Dennis Irwin and now Doherty. That's from Hugh in Cove. Evan in Hume says 5 defeats for Man City already this season in the league. Did Mystic Johnny Ward predict that this season? Does Evan in Hume have it in for you or something?
He somewhat did, based on a wager he's had. All right, yeah, you didn't see a huge amount of.
No, but in fairness, like last season, I didn't think Liverpool bottled it, but I am surprised at City's regression this season. Like,
I think everyone has to be.
Yeah,
you have to be.
Like, I think
even if you thought Liverpool were going to win the league this season, nobody would have thought Man City were going to be five defeats.
Okay, but then let me throw it back at you. What would you have said if you knew Laporte was going to be out injured?
Laporte, and also how much David Silva has gone backwards, I think.
Even if you knew Laporte was injured, I don't think I would have been expecting them to be this
Maybe
far
not
back.
that bad, but
to be honest as well, you also probably didn't expect Liverpool were going to be this good.
True.
I think is the other side of it maybe as well.
Did you see Otamendi for the goal last night? Oh my God. Honestly, you would absolutely...
But Otamendi's not a good defender. Like, he's genuinely...
Johnny, this was beyond not good. Like, this was a decision-making thing, not poor technique. I mean, this was... Honestly, Division 3, I've managed into Kilkenny League Division 3, and if my centre-half decided, like every centre-half knows how deep you go with a player and when you pass him on to a midfielder, for Otamendi to go rushing up on the Jota like that was absolute lunacy. Absolute lunacy.
The more you watch Liverpool as well, there are moments in games, in the Leicester game the other night, where these were sparing moments when they were slightly stretched. And Van Dijk's positional sense the whole time, he's just kind of like a lad that was told, you have to make the littlest effort with the maximum result in a game.
Yeah.
And Man City, in fairness to Pep, the signings he's made defensively and that defence he's put together, that defence would struggle at any level, basically. It's not a good back four, as much as the midfield isn't protecting them. The defence with, like Van Dijk's, like I know that they were kind of knocked for what they paid for him, but Van Dijk, the assurance that he's given Liverpool...
I think you're not even looking for Otamendi to be Van Dijk. You're just looking for him not to be awful. Like, do you know what I mean?
But on Van Dijk, like I think there's just something in... There's an incredibly lazy style to the way he moves around. He looks like he's not really trying at all, as you're saying. And that kind of that assuredness.
That moment
kind of just rubs off on a
absolutely.
couple of people around
It was
him.
the other night when, I'm not sure who, Liverpool gave the ball away in the left-back area, and one of the Leicester players came back to cut it back sort of into like Vardy or someone, and Van Dijk kind of just like positioned basically his ass against the ball, but he did it in a very kind of nonchalant way, blocked the ball, Liverpool won it back straight down the pitch, and in fact I think they created a chance out of it. But you're just watching, you're like, how...
You're right, it's the way he carries himself. I always get the impression of him, he's like everybody else's cool big brother, isn't he? He's just like, you know, if you're in trouble or anything, you
He's got
just
the
give
ponytail as well.
Virgil a shout and he'll get you out of trouble. He's, you know, he
Michael,
looks
my brother,
after
will love that reference.
He
He's a
looks
big Liverpool
after
fan.
everybody. He really, really does. Now that said, I'll tell you what. Since Joe Gomez has gone in beside him, whoa, he has been fantastic. He has been absolutely superb. So he has, and look, they look fantastic.
The game the other night was like, this is it, it's done, because like, how are Liverpool going to even drop points? This is like they're going to drop points.
Yeah, that's as we were chatting with Pat and Evan there. You're wondering, like, you know, are they going to start targeting that Man City 100 points record? Now, as Pat was saying, I think the big one for them is probably going to be going the season unbeaten rather than the 100 points, because if you're like,
I think
eventually you get to a stage if you're in the Champions League and stuff as well.
The thing, though.
You know, you might start putting out second string teams or something if the league is wrapped up early, and you can drop easy points there.
Liverpool don't have that bad of a squad as well, like, so they can bring in players. We saw that in the Everton home game where they switched it around. They were absolutely brilliant. But if I were Klopp, whilst obviously every game, you know, you don't take your eyes off this, but I'd be thinking Champions League double would be absolutely amazing. That's what I'd be thinking, because there are no outstanding teams in Europe really, and Liverpool are more than capable of doing both.
Now we have a goal at Vicarage Road. This one, Watford versus Aston Villa, with the details of that. Andrew Shield.
Watford 1, Aston Villa 0. Villa have themselves to blame. They gave away the ball on the edge of their own penalty area. It was defender Conter who did so. Really poor effort, and the shot came in straight away from Decore of Watford, parried by the goalkeeper Heaton, but Deeney was first on the mark to fire home, left-footed from close range. Deeney the scorer. Watford 1, Aston Villa 0.
And we'll also get our first update of the afternoon from St Mary's, where Southampton are taking on Crystal Palace. Peter Hood.
Southampton 0, Crystal Palace 0. A goal ruled out for Max Meyer for Crystal Palace. The nearest we've come to a goal, though Southampton have, in the most part, had most of the possession and the better chances. Bednarek at the far post from a Ward-Prowse free kick. Should have done a little bit better, clearly unmarked as he arrived, but he scuffed a half volley wide of a gaping goal. But to be fair, Palace have defended well. They've fought for everything. There is a niggle undertone in the game, but it remains Southampton 0, Palace 0.
A text in here from Killian in Leakslip. I grew up in the 90s and support United. My dad is a massive Liverpool fan. For 20 years I always celebrated and rubbed it in his face when United won the league. He has been very quiet so far, and I'm worried that he has something planned. My nightmare has finally come true. It's Liverpool's to lose, and sadly I can't see that happening. That's from Killian in Leakslip.
When I was a Liverpool fan as a kid, I can't express how much I absolutely hated Man United. I hated Alex Ferguson. I hate how many penalties they got that I didn't think they should have gotten. I hated the amount of late goals they got. I hated everything about them. But right now, as a Liverpool fan, Man United are a total irrelevance.
Yeah. What I do have planned, there are 5 or 10 Liverpool fans that I know that I just know we're going to bite on it. Even though I'm revealing it all now and they know it's going to happen, I know full well they're going to bite on it. I just can't wait to do it come May. When they finally get their hands on that trophy, just throw in a little, like, Leicester were the closest challengers.
If they get to 100 points, I think
there are loads of people who aren't going to bat an eyelid at it. I just know there are 5 or 10 friends of mine that are going to snipe, and I can't wait.
They have to be put at the moment, the way they're going, they have to be put right up there with the best league champions.
100%.
Assuming it goes in the trajectory it's going at the moment. But I will say the only proviso is they haven't been great in Europe. They were poor in the 2 Napoli games, and I think that's where their challenge is.
It's amazing that they're as good as they are with what is still realistically take out everything that goes around that midfield. And on paper, that midfield still isn't 3 world-class names. It's far from it.
But it's just working really well together.
It's functional. It's like, this is our job, win the ball back, give it to the front 3. They don't really even score goals in midfield. Like, you're kind of like, Miller came on the other night and he scores a penalty straight away, but it's like, their function, it's just work, and give the ball to front 3. Yeah, or the fullbacks.
Yeah.
Or the fullbacks.
Listen.
I mean, Trent the other night was just, when he got that first cross for of all players, you're like, the ball is played to him. Granted, he's given a lot of space by Leicester to put that ball in, but like the quality of that cross is off the charts, and it wasn't even unexpected because at this stage Trent Alexander-Arnold, but when he plays in the crossfield ball to Robertson, and it's almost like they have this telepathic relationship, fullback to fullback, and then to crown it off with that goal, it was. If you want to be a fullback, be Trent Alexander-Arnold. And the fact that he's doing this with a Scouse accent, he used to put his head over the wall to watch them training as a kid, I absolutely love that, because that's rare and rare.
There's been a couple of pieces with him over the last year or two since his profile has risen, and if you just stick his name into Google there and you'll probably get one or two of them up. He's a really, really interesting guy, really interesting. I mean, I think he's really high standard at chess. Like he's mad into chess, and he's quite different, I think, than your normal footballer around the place. But he has been outstanding.
Yeah, and I think it adds to it, like he's one of, they have a handful of just very likeable guys in the squad as well, like Andy Robertson as well, and none more. You do warm to.
As I was saying, the game I was at last season, I think, was the Burnley game at home. Henderson had a captain's notes in the match programme, but all his match programme notes was about the Sean Cox fundraiser. And granted, they're on obscene money to the rest of us, but they really come across as humble guys, and they're a likeable bunch of players.
Another sign of it as well was Firmino's reaction when he got his goal the other day. He headed straight for Klopp, and then it kind of transpires in the aftermath of it that Klopp comes out and says, for the first time pretty much since I've had him, you could see that he was a bit worried, not worried is probably the wrong phrase, but a bit annoyed about how little he'd scored recently.
Yeah, doubting his own form.
Yeah, absolutely. And whereas I'm sure any Liverpool fan knows, like Klopp was, obviously he did what he should do, which is just reassure him, you're far more than good. It's a brilliant clip that was floating around of Steve Kerr talking to Steph Curry on when he had one of like his rare off nights, and it's just, you actually hear the full audio of it, and this struck me as being the soccer version of that, where Klopp just completely assures Firmino, probably like, listen, relax there, you needn't worry if the goals aren't flowing, the job you're doing for us in every other facet of the game is just absolutely phenomenal, and don't worry about it.
The three of them are very different players in their own way as well. Manny, Firmino and Salah, they've different parts to play, but I thought Firmino's touch for the goal, just that kind of kill it on the outside of the foot, was just, now in slow motion he makes it look kind of easy, but you're just, that performance was, like, that must be one of their best performances ever under Klopp. Maybe the Barcelona game, but that Leicester game, of, as somebody said online, it was like when they wanted the game to be 100 miles an hour, it was 100 miles an hour. When they want the game to be a mile an hour, it was a mile an hour. They just dictated everything. You know,
like 1-0 up, and there was a little couple of minutes where they'd made a couple of, I think Alisson kind of shanked a clearance and stuff, and you thought Leicester were kind of getting ahead of steam, and it's just slow things down. Bring on James Milner. Now, they might have got a favourable enough call maybe to get the penalty and stuff. But once that goes in and stuff, that's it done. But it was just to bring on Milner known full well you're just going to slow down the game.
And the other thing that makes, I mean, if you think they're going to be unbearable if they win one, we're talking about them possibly winning both here. But the other thing that actually makes that even more doable for them again is this break in February. I mean, that's going to suit Liverpool absolutely down to the ground. They'll have been trucking along. God knows the title could be almost wrapped up, and the next thing you're given a 14. Well, I think they have something like 13, 14 days between games in the middle of February, just as they're preparing for the Atletico Madrid games. Like they're going to be hard to stop.
They've got it. They've just about got the nice draw around these Christmas games as well. That they don't have the 1 day break in between. They were playing on Thursday night and then back out tomorrow, so they'll have an extra day off over the bulk of the teams playing this afternoon. But if they are going to hit that 100 points, you're talking 48 points out of a possible 60 that's left.
So what's that? 4/5 of the points. That's very, very achievable. And not only
they've dropped 2 points in their first 18 games, they would need to drop 13 in the next 20.
I think it's very... Now, obviously, this is extremely dangerous chat for Liverpool fans. A couple of defeats and all of a sudden you're getting a bit wobbly. Look at Leeds, who looked home and hose for promotion, and all of a sudden you're getting worried again. But that probably is the narrative now. And Leicester were so inferior the other night, and you're looking at Man City. So there really there isn't a challenger there. And that's the thing. And as Shane was saying, you are missing a title race this season because the rest is so interesting. But
just looking at it here, they'll win the next two. They're home to Wolves, they're home to Sheffield United. The two then
Wolves game will be interesting now. That's a game that...
Yeah, but at home...
That's one you can listen to tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr at Anfield for us.
So
very good.
Back to the A-team. No Keegan tomorrow.
No Keegan, no.
That will be an interesting game.
But the following two, so it's home to Wolves, home to Sheffield United, and then the following two are going to be the interesting two. Away to Spurs, followed by home to Man United. Now, as we know, with United... Look, they could beat United 5-0, but they could just as easily lose to United.
Yeah, but that's a game that will actually suit Man United, strange enough, because they'll be able to hit
exactly,
them on the break.
100%. So if they picked up what you're looking at maybe possibly 3 wins and a draw there, if they come through, if they get 10 points from the 12 there, they're probably going to steamroll on.
So they need to kind of maybe draw against Wolves and drop another 4 or 5 points against Spurs and Man United for there to be any
hope, yeah.
But the Wolves game is a game in hand, not necessarily, but
they are
they'll have a game in hand.
3 of the tougher games they've left anyway, put it that way.
Now, half-time whistles have gone around those 3 games. We're going to start at St James's Park, where Newcastle are hosting Carlo Ancelotti's Everton, with the details of that at the break. Stephen Goldsmith.
Newcastle 0, Everton 1. A fast-paced encounter at St James's Park, where the visitors just have their noses in front. When Calvert-Lewin fired home from close range from them, it was one-way traffic. A double save from Dubravka, just one of a few hairy moments for the home side. Then momentum changed, and Newcastle looked transformed. Everton have been pinned back. Andy Carroll had the ball in the net, but it was ruled out for offside. Hayden and Scher have also gone close. Half-time, Newcastle 0, Everton 1.
Now, also half-time whistle at Vicarage Road, Watford against Aston Villa, with the details, Andrew Cheel.
Watford 1, Aston Villa 0. Villa have only themselves to blame for the goal. A Conte error on the edge of his box, giving the ball away. Capoue shot from the 18-yard mark. Half saved by the keeper, but Deeney, quick on the mark, buried the loose ball with his left foot from close range. Villa keeper Heaton has also made a couple of other decent saves. They've gone close themselves, of Aston Villa, with a lovely curling cross from Hourahan and a downward header by Wesley, bringing an absolutely fabulous save by Foster in the Watford goal. It's Watford 1, Aston Villa 0.
And the other 3 o'clock kickoff this afternoon is Southampton against Crystal Palace, with the details at St Mary's, Peter Hood.
Southampton 0, Crystal Palace 0. It's been a tight affair, this one, with Southampton dominating the possession and being the more threatening of the two sides. Though Palace did have a goal ruled out by VAR after good work by Zaha down the left-hand side. When he crossed, pulled the ball back for Mayer, it looked a good goal, but the VAR check ruled it out. Southampton went close through Bednarek, and Boufal's been a cause of problems to the Palace defence down the left-hand side. Half-time, Southampton 0, Palace 0.
Almost time for a break here. First, though, I'm just going to read out 1 or 2 texts. Tell Johnny that Man United will always be relevant to Liverpool until they manage to win as many English titles as us. Forever in our shadow. #20.
Well, they weren't in their shadow until the Fergie days, to be fair. Liverpool were the dominant team for a couple of decades before that. But if people of my generation or Liverpool fans have actually seen them win no league at all. So it's like, this is going to be great fun. I think they'd actually prefer if it was a little bit more of a challenge. So they could have this amazing, because they're going to be.
That's one we're just going to grab the audio.
They're going to be celebrating in February, by the looks of it.
And then lastly, United fan here. Stop going on about Liverpool. Really, you should be discussing how bad every other team is, including in Europe.
There's an element of truth to that, because genuinely, you watch Liverpool's 2 games against Napoli this year. They were very beatable. They looked ordinary, didn't create that many chances, and they are a bit of a mishmash, the Premier League teams this season. Spurs obviously started disastrously. Man United have been piss poor. Arsenal have been a joke. Man City, for whatever, or Leicester should not be second for much of the season, obviously. So there is an element of truth to that, but Liverpool you can only beat what's put in front of you.
What's going wrong with all the rest of the teams? That's something we might get to after 4 o'clock. For now, though, we're going to take a quick break.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
Join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter.
Productive afternoons with Harvey Norman. Need more you time? Ask about our range of large capacity washing machines with quick wash functions in Harvey Norman today. Now, where's the remote?
Go, Harvey, go! This Irish success story is brought to you by Guaranteed Irish.
Did you know that all of the 34 million pots of Sudocrem sold in over 50 countries worldwide are manufactured by an Irish pharmaceutical company in Baldoyle? Trusted by mums, dads and beauty queens across the globe, while also supporting 51 Irish jobs. Guaranteed Irish helps you support companies that are altogether better choices for our communities. So, look out for it. GuaranteedIrish.ie. Altogether better.
Leadership in Sport, Lessons for Leaders, a unique networking event hosted by me, Pat Kenny, at the Intercontinental Hotel in Dublin on Friday, February the 7th. Hear Leinster rugby coach Leo Cullen, Vodafone Chief Executive Anne O'Leary, Kilkenny manager Brian Cody, and a panel of hurling greats. They'll share insights on the focus, passion, attention to detail, and relentless drive necessary for success, all in the company of Ireland's leading corporates. Book your table now at lessonsforleaders.ie.
Proudly supported by Newstalk.
Introducing Aldi's New Year Party food range, including a $2.99 each specially selected chicken and mushroom volleybongs, 8 tempura prawns, and chicken pops with cranberry ketchup. Plus, Procini Brut Spanish sparkling wine was $7.99, now just $6.99. Wonderful value. Just what the crowd has come to see. Put on an amazing show this new year. Enjoy alcohol responsibly.
Look and feel great for less this new year at Louis Copeland. There's up to 50% off casual wear and suits. Shop in-store or online at louiscopeland.com. New Cork store now open.
This Christmas, there are almost 4,000 children without a home, but you can make a powerful Christmas gift.
Like hot, nutritious meals, expert support from Focus Ireland, and the greatest gift of all, a secure home for a child.
Please donate now on 1850 204 205 or go to focusireland.ie.
The human heart doesn't care about opening hours, so we don't have any. I'm Dave, night porter at the Mater Private Dublin. After 12 years, you might say I've seen everything. But one thing I know is when someone comes into our urgent cardiac care unit at 3 a.m, they are extremely relieved to find friendly faces and an expert team on duty, 24/7, 365 days a year. And we're the only private hospital in Ireland that can say that. It's part of the Mater Private's commitment to making lives better, together.
We've helped perfect electric cars. We've broken a world record. We've saved 6.5 billion litres of water. What have you done today? We've done amazing things at Intel, and we want to do more of them, which means we'll need some more brilliant people. So if you're an engineer or technician and you'd like to do something amazing, we'd love to hear from you. Just look for us at intel.ie/join us. Intel. Amazing works here.
Only 3 days left to get your Millionaire raffle ticket for the New Year's Eve draw. With one guaranteed millionaire, over 6,000 cash prizes, and our best odds ever, you can win it. Even your granny who's learning ukulele can win it.
Oh dear.
Limited tickets available. Pick up a ticket in store, in-app, or at lottery.ie. Gift responsibly.
The Harvey Norman Big Sale is back with these doorbuster specials. Strictly limited stock, in-store only. Save over €300 on the Lenovo Core i5 touchscreen laptop, now €547. The Akai 50-inch Android TV, now only €292. Save €200. Get the Como folding guest bed for €99. And get a set of 4 gin glasses for just €6. All in-store only. Limited stock, restrictions may apply. The Harvey Norman Big Sale is now on. Don't miss out.
Go!
The Ryanair seat sale is now on, with up to €30 off return flights on over 1 million seats to Europe's best sun, beach and city destinations. Book today on Ryanair.com and fly with Europe's lowest emissions, lowest fares airline. Limited availability. See Ryanair.com.
Across Ireland. This is the IMRO Radio Awards Station of the Year. This is Newstalk.
Good afternoon, I'm Tina Gates. Direct provision campaigners have given a cautious welcome to plans for a new expert group to improve how refugees and asylum seekers are dealt with here. Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan says the group being launched today will also engage better with communities where accommodation centres are being planned. Ellie Kiziombe spent several years living in direct provision. She says the group should also meet with the thousands of people living inside the system.
To visit centres, to hear from many asylum seekers, for them even to understand where we were 4 or 5 years ago and where we are now, and how they can even make it better from now moving forward.
The Taoiseach says Ireland's due for a revolution in offshore wind energy. In his Christmas briefing to journalists, Leo Varadkar says there are serious challenges ahead.
We've fallen behind on where we should be on offshore wind because our planning system
for offshore and foreshore just doesn't work. So it's a new planning system, a little bit like the on-land planning system working through on board Planola, and that will allow us to have what I believe will be a revolution in terms of offshore wind energy.
2 kayakers have been rescued after capsizing their boats in choppy waters this morning near Gary Kennedy on Lough Derg. The Coast Guard Helicopter Rescue 115 was mobilised along with the Lough Derg Ornelai lifeboat and a mobile Coast Guard unit from Killaloo. The 2 kayakers were found holding onto their upturned kayaks but extremely cold. They were taken into the lifeboat and brought to Gary Kennedy Harbour, where they were met by an ambulance and paramedics. It's expected a large section of the Green Lewis line in Dublin won't reopen until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Keegan from Transdev says engineers are still working to identify the source of the problem.
Due to a power failure in the Stillorgan area, Lewis Green Line services are currently running between Broombridge and Ballally only. There's no Lewis service between Ballally and Brides Glen, so an alternative coach service is serving affected stops, and Dublin Bus are accepting Lewis tickets for the duration of the disruption.
That's it for now. All news updates are on our website. That's newstalk.com.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to the AA, you can find our lowest car insurance price online, guaranteed.
Mild with rain and drizzle in the west, gusty southerly winds, locally strong at times, with top temperatures of 9 to 12 degrees. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
All right, you're very welcome back. We're into the last hour of this Saturday's Off the Ball. Neil Treacy here with you alongside Shane Keegan and Johnny Ward as well this afternoon. We are getting through all of this week's football at the moment. Earlier on we spoke about Man City's shock defeat at the hands of Wolves last night. What now for Liverpool, now that the Premier League title looks all but certain, even before we head into 2020. All of our football coverage, by the way, is brought to you thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. Now, we had that text, guys, just before the news at 4 o'clock asking, you know, why are we talking about Liverpool? We should be talking about what is going wrong with absolutely everyone else. And we might actually just start looking at that because there's a fine race emerging for Champions League football next season. I say fine race. It's a good race because everyone is just tripping over themselves. So at the moment, if you go down to 4th place, Chelsea, 32 points. As things stand, there are 5 points between Chelsea on 32 points in 4th place and Crystal Palace on 27. Even Everton at the moment are only 7 points off the Champions League as things stand.
I don't know what to say about this. I thought when Manchester United, when I saw them against Spurs and Man City, you know, granted you were looking at it, and the Man City game was all about counter-attacking, but you're looking at the players that they have and the pace that they have in their attack, and you're thinking he might have finally clicked on this here. McTominay had that whole midfield role. They have Maguire at the back. They've one of the best keepers in the world, if not the best keeper in the world. I think Solskjaer's hit on something here. There's a big opportunity, and then they go on to do what they've done the last sort of few weeks. They were absolutely abject last week. Tottenham, we've had a bit of crack with the bet that we've had that Tottenham finished in the top 2. It's kind of still on because if they'd beaten
top 2, is top 2 just a bit out of reach though?
It was 200 to 1 that
10-point gap.
At the time, it was 200 to 1 Liverpool would win the league and Spurs would come second. So that was like the bet. But now at the same time, Spurs, if they'd beaten Chelsea, would be 6 behind Man City. But I don't think Spurs look good enough to me to actually go on a run. They were poor against Chelsea. They were poor against Man United. Sheffield United are 7.
Good enough to nick forward.
Yes, they are.
I think
Wolves are very interesting now. I think they'll definitely fancy their chance. Now, they've only 30 points from 19 games. For a team in 5th, that's not great. But Liverpool have so many points taken off everyone. Like, it's an absolute mishmash between 4th and 15th, really.
I did on
10
Sheffield
points between 4th and 15th.
On Sheffield United, you mentioned there as well. There was a bit of some top managerial banter there a few days ago.
This sounds like top banter.
Chris Wilder was asked about the prospect of, you're hitting up towards that 30-point mark. I mean, all of a sudden you got to stop looking back at relegation in the rearview mirror and look ahead. Try get a push for Europe going on. And great line. It was we might get a team holiday to Magaluf at the end of the year.
Yeah, that was like Ollie Horgan at the FAI Awards. I was saying, like, how good could Finn Harps be? And he goes, next season, he's like, well, being honest now, we won't be in Europe. We might go to Lourdes, but we won't be in Europe. But it is a little bit of a worry for Sheffield United as well. We've seen, remember when Hull had this amazing, first half of the season under Phil Brown and just stayed up because they collapsed in the second half of the season. That can't happen. Sheffield United are 100% punching above their weight, but it's great to see, like, and as watching, like, as a kind of a neutral Irish person, you want to see the Irish lads doing well, and like even your man Fleck in midfield for them. I saw him at Coventry like a couple of years ago. So my mate's a Coventry fan, went over to watch a game. I was like, he's a lovely player. I didn't think he'd be playing for a team that's 7th in the Premier League and being so influential as well. And they play a system that's good for Ireland because these lads are coming off club duty and they're in very good spirits.
Here's one for you. If there was a nomination form put in front of you at the moment for manager of the year, like, obviously, they're how many points clear? But, like,
you're talking about manager of the half season.
So manager of the half season, like, it's not a done deal for Klopp. Brendan Rodgers, Nuno Santo, Chris Wilder.
I think Klopp would be mad long odds on.
Probably. 17 wins and 1 draw is just something else. I will just break away from this for a second. First goal of the afternoon at St Mary's. Southampton against Crystal Palace. Peter Hood.
It's Southampton 0, Crystal Palace 1. The second half barely underway. A free kick from Milivojevic, floated to the far post, and James Tompkins with a very powerful header off the underside of the bar has given Crystal Palace the lead. It's Southampton 0, Palace 1.
We were mentioning a couple of minutes ago, Crystal Palace, as things stood, were 5 points off the Champions League places. They're now only 3 off them. After that goal, they would, if they hold on, they'd go up as far as 29 points. On the Champions League race, we mentioned Manchester United there. I might just bring in a bit of audio we have of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because he was asked about the prospects of them getting in, despite their patchy form at the moment. And here's what he said. He said that if they do find any bit of form, any bit of consistency, they'll be in the Champions League comfortably by the end of the season.
If we get consistent, it's not going to go down to the wire, because that's we should get into the top 4 without waiting for the last game against Leicester. But it might go down to that last game against them, who knows. But for me, this team, I've said about next season that we might be challenges for a lot more next year. Yeah, definitely because we're young, but I still expect a lot from this team this year. And I expect them to be ready for Burnley now, because that's the next. I don't think it's fair on the boys at all. I don't think it's fair to be expected to perform at the best of your level, both mentally and physically, 48 hours after you've played. But I think we're probably in the best position to perform on Saturday. 1, the game was over after 45 minutes. 2, we're young. So we've got a great chance against Burnley to perform at the best level, because our boys do, when you're 23, I think, is the average age of the starting outfield players today. So that'll make it easier for us to recover than Burnley, for example. I think they played until the end against Everton. We were done after 45 minutes, used second half as recovery. But it's not fair. It's definitely not, especially when there's been a game against Watford just gone. There's going to be a game New Year's Day. 2 games in 3 days possible, in a week, just once in a while, but not when it's as tight as this. So it's not really. I'm impressed by everyone in the dressing room, because the way they're so professional, looking after themselves. That's why they can stay at home last night. There was no point having them in a hotel, because I trust them. I know they know what is the right thing to do.
The response to Watford, and presumably after what you said to them, are you absolutely confident there will be no repeat of the Watford or the disappointing result performances you've seen?
They know, the boys know what I expect on Saturday.
I didn't realise McTominay had apparently gotten quite badly injured in that game, which I think is a big blow for them. But they need to start winning games where they're playing against a team that's playing deep line defence, and they need the likes of Martial to be far more consistent. He looked really on his game the other night. Now, Newcastle did help them by basically gifting goals, but in fairness to Man United, when they are good and they play on the break with pace, they're a very good side. And I'm just not sure the dressing room is. I'm not sure I trust them where Pogba is. When Pogba's coming back in, he played well the other night, but it's very, very hard to call who's going to finish in the top 4, whether it be a 3rd or 4th.
I think someone's microphone go there? I'm not sure. I heard something go. But anyway, speaking of United, like, there's just this kind of, I'd like it, it's almost the French rugby cliche.
Yeah.
You don't know which one is going to show up.
Well, Pogba, who is French, kind of epitomises that in that he came on the... what would you do with Pogba? I mean, in terms of world-class players, Pogba is unquestionably one of the most talented players, to my mind, in the world when he's at his game. But I would have him out of that. I would have him out of that dressing room as quickly as I could, get the money as much as I could, and rebuild the team in other areas, because I just don't like his influence.
Yeah, he's starting to fall into a very similar bracket to Neymar, really, isn't he? You know, you do the negatives outweigh the positives in terms of what they bring to a dressing room and the culture that they set. I don't know. Look, obviously, you look at what he does in a French jersey. And he just looks a completely different player for them. He really, really does. It's when he's up for it, when he's kind of given the freedom to go and do what he wants, he can be absolutely superb. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think it's hard to see him ever kind of becoming a success at United at this stage. You'd imagine he'll move on, wouldn't you?
I think half of his kind of mind is already gone anyway. But I would get the feeling that Solskjaer probably has that in his mind, where he's like, we're sort of jumping the gun in terms of what Pogba was like as a character. But for me, the games that I watched under Mourinho, where he clearly didn't try a yard, that was enough for me, because as much as, even if I absolutely despise my coach, I'm playing for the club, I'm playing for the fans, I'm playing for myself. And I thought Pogba just down tools too much for Mourinho. I thought he was a bit of a fraud the way he played it.
Yeah, he could be, I don't know, I think he could be a great character in the dressing room or something, but it was certainly evident at various stages over the last 12 months that he hasn't been a particularly good character on the pitch.
No.
You certainly couldn't. You can't trust them. You need to be able to trust all of your players to go out and do exactly the role that you've given them, and you just, he's his own man. He's just going to do his own thing all the time. That's, again, maybe we're being a bit harsh on him, but that's the way I see him, you know.
There was a moment in the Champions League game, they were knocked out by, after beat PSG last season, they were knocked out by
Barca.
Barca beat them. So there was a moment in the game in Old Trafford where he did a 1-2 with Shaw, and Shaw overplayed the pass, and Pogba's frustration at Shaw was manifesting, like going way over the top the ball. Should have been a straight red card, got away with it. And just little things like that, I just wouldn't trust him at all. I just wouldn't I'd prefer an 80% player talent-wise that I knew was 100% character-wise than a 100% player talent-wise who I just couldn't trust.
On that, there's a good text in here actually from Joe in Stradbally. Pogba is considered as a world-class midfielder, but he wouldn't get in that Liverpool team. Overhyped?
Well, he wouldn't.
As we were just having the discussion earlier on, there aren't the outstanding individuals, world-class individuals in the Liverpool midfield, but they're so good collectively.
I don't think Klopp would go near Pogba with the barge pole. Now, there's
not that it's realistic in any way. We're talking complete hypothetically.
If we're playing a five-a-side game tomorrow night, and Pogba and that Liverpool midfield is there, I'm picking Pogba straight away. But Pogba wouldn't fit into that Liverpool team in a cultural sense, in a philosophical sense, and in a sense that midfield is functional. It's not about like showboating number 10s or whatever.
The only way you can get away with having three as attacking players as that Liverpool front three is if you've got three absolute workhorses in the centre of the field, and obviously that's for all his talents. I don't think anybody would refer to him as a workhorse.
Goal to bring you up to date at St James's Park. It had been Everton leading Newcastle 1-0. What is the latest now from Stephen Goldsmith?
Newcastle 1, Everton 1. The home sides have an equaliser. A free kick was floated in from the left. It was a typical Andy Carroll knockdown in the box. The ball fell into the path of Fabian Schär, who swept home from close range. They weathered an early second half storm here in Newcastle. It's Newcastle 1, Everton 1.
And there hasn't been a goal, but there has been a red card in the game at Vicarage Road between Watford and Aston Villa. Andrew Cheel.
Watford 1, Aston Villa it remains, but the home side will have to defend this lead for the rest of the game with 10 men. Adrian Mariappa, who's been playing right back this afternoon, has been sent off for a second yellow card. This one was a foul on Hourihane. It looked ugly in midfield and definitely worth a yellow card. 2 yellows equals a red, and he's got no complaints at all. It's Watford down to 10 men, leading by 1-0.
So red card there at Vicarage Road.
Just watching the screen here in front of us, you know, I just love watching Andy Carroll play soccer. I really, really do. He's after taking a ball down on his chest there that I think if I took it down on my chest, there'd be a hole.
Imagine if Andy Carroll was Irish. The fun we'd have.
He'd be our dream, all right, wouldn't he?
I don't think he'd be a Stephen Kenny type of player, though.
No, I'm talking about Mick.
Yeah, he's it's significant. I think Newcastle, just watching half-time, they were so unlucky to be 1-0 down half-time.
Really good game, I think.
And in fairness to Steve Bruce, I think most people would have said that after the start that they had, you know, what a stupid man he was to take that job. As much as he's a hometown man, he's taken over from one of the truly world-class managers in the game, and I have to admire him. I severe doubts. I thought they'd be really kind of struggling at this stage.
I heard him do his. Yeah, I heard him do his.
Also better to watch than they were under Benitez, by the way. To be fair,
I heard him do his post-match interview after the game on Stevens' day, and he was kind of going on about, you know, it's a really disappointing performance considering how good of a run we've been on. And I had to say, I didn't really notice that they'd been on much of a run. And I was like, are they on a run? Then I looked at the league table and they were in the top half. And I was like, what? When did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think they were a lot of people's pick to be going down this season.
Yeah, he's
based on what they'd lost from Benitez, the lack of him. Well, they did buy a couple of players towards the end, but just how thin the squad was. And
he's a very likeable fella as well. He's if he came out for a coffee with you, he'd be no different to what you'd expect. He'd just be a good, decent lad. And
it's a really, really attacking Everton lineup as well. I mean, obviously it's only Ancelotti's second game there with them, but he's gone all out. It's disappointing to see. Obviously, disappointing to see Seamus left out of the side again.
I'm just wondering on that now. Like with, you know, Mick would obviously be a big believer in. We spoke about Whelan, but Mick's a big believer in you have to be playing well for your club, and he's made that point over and over. So if Coleman, I'm wondering where Coleman's Irish future is. Not to mind, because I think Kenny will definitely pick Doherty ahead of him if it's a straight right back shout, and I think he'll play 4 at the back.
Do we have to take into account though the type of game this is 2 days after the game against Burnley? Like Coleman started against Burnley. Everyone's been chopping and changing teams, rotating people around. I know Sidibe started that game as well, but would you kind of be inclined to maybe give it a few more weeks just to see?
I'll tell you what's happening is there we are.
He nearly missed it. He nearly actually missed it.
I think we're going to have to wait on VAR for this one though. Everton have put the ball in the back of the net. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has done it.
Great cross.
Third in 2 games potentially for him.
So Ancelotti's probably not even celebrating here because he's thinking this could be a VAR.
While we are waiting for the VAR check, I might just we have a little video more of Pat Nevin from yesterday. We were speaking to him about Carlo Ancelotti's appointment, and we're going to hear what he had to say, what his thoughts are now.
I think the most interesting thing about it was the substitution he made. He brought in Moise Kean. Now, obviously, that helps the kid because he was under serious pressure after coming on and he subbed and all that sort of stuff. And there was a lot of discussion about he's not had a good time since he's come over. He is a fabulous, fabulous player. But of course, Ancelotti's watched him in Italy. He knows what he's capable of, probably more than most people that are Everton supporters even know what he's capable of. So he's got a lift for that. But the most important thing, it was a technical change. He went and had 2 strikers up. He had Keane and he kept Calvert-Lewin on. And because of that, it stretched to 2 centre-backs. The cross came in 2 minutes after he made the change. Calvert-Lewin scores a header. Now, he's not going to be able to do that every time, but it's a technical, tactical change that he made of not only personnel but system has won them the game. So that immediately thinks, wow, just the players will turn around and say, wow, he knows what he's doing. So they will buy into it right away. I mean, there's a bit of luck involved, but it happened because he did that. So well done, Carlo. Still a long way to go. I mean, if they end up hanging about in the mid-table, which they're just about now, I mean, they're a couple of points away from it now, any sort of little run that they can put together now, they can actually start thinking about maybe sneaking towards the Europa League places. But, you know, upper levels of the mid-table, and that'll be good enough for him. But rebuild, I am really interested, however, to see what he gets in January. I suspect a centre-half, maybe looking for another centre-forward, but certainly a centre-half. And if he gets that and gets that right, they actually might have a good second half of the season.
That goal has been given, Everton leading 2-1. We'll hear the details in a moment or two from Stephen Goldsmith. First, though, we're going to go down to St Mary's. Southampton taking on Crystal Palace with the details, and the latest on that one is Peter Hood.
Southampton 0, Crystal Palace 1. The visitors leading through a second-half goal from a James Tompkins header, his first of the season, after a free kick, a perfectly placed free kick from Mihailovic. gave him the chance to hit the underside of the bar. Palace have given as good as they've got in this game. They've had to fight hard. Southampton have had most of the possession, but haven't been able to create enough chances to trouble David Guetta in the Palace goal. It's Southampton 0, Palace 1.
So that Everton goal was given, as I said, Dominic Calvert-Lewin put it into the back of the net. It had been ball across the box and from Richarlison.
Because interestingly, just listening to Pat talking, he's talking about how the fact that Ancelotti has gone with an out-and-out front two in the first two games, which is quite unusual, I suppose, in the modern Premier League. So it is, and he did go with that again today. But interestingly, they've scored that goal just kind of moments after they changed system. Fabian Delph came on for Moskeen. And they've kind of gone back to more of a 4-2-3-1. If again go back to Seamus Coleman, I mean, you know, obviously the player would never admit it, but if you're Seamus Coleman at the moment, you're sitting watching this match hoping Theo Walcott has a howler, because I mean, Coleman needs this to work where both himself and Sidibe get into the same team, because you get the feeling if it's one or the other, unfortunately Seamus is going to be losing out at the moment, and Sidibe went into the right wing position the last day. Watching the game, just kind of we're only kind of glancing at it every now and again here, but thankfully Walcott doesn't seem to have had a major impact on the game. But I'll tell you what, such an attacking starting lineup. It really is. Like in front of that back four, you've got a midfield four of Richarlison on one side, Walcott on the other, and Davies and Sigurdsson as your two centre midfielders, with an out front two with Calvert-Lewin and Keegan.
I mean, protection for a back four that hadn't been particularly good all season.
Incredibly attacking.
Your Go United 3-5-2 era, the two wingers as fullbacks, and
Mark Ludden would debate whether he's a fullback or a winger now, I think. So he would.
Did you find with that system, because I remember Colm Horgan was kind of switching from position to position, that the right-sided centre-back, and this is going to be interesting for Coleman, so the right of the three, if he's a sort of fish out of water as a fullback turning in, how different is that as a job? We'll say if you're playing three at the back, and what if you're playing three at the back and you're playing against one up top? So how does that work then in terms of the left and the right side centre-back?
Yeah, and I suppose what you're trying to decide when you go with three at the back is, are the two players on the outside of that three, are you better having a full back in that position, or are you better having a centre back in that position? Because you know the position requires half the skill set of a full back, and it requires half the skill set of a centre back, and that's the decision that anybody who goes with it kind of has to make. And what you almost inevitably end up with is one of each. So if you look at Shamrock Rovers this year, you had Joey O'Brien, a full back on one side of it, and Lee Grace, a centre back, on the other side of it, with Pico in the middle the whole time. And that's usually what happens, because you'll almost inevitably end up where with all systems, we always write down systems symmetrically. They're never symmetrical. You know, you'll always have
fluidity in
absolutely, and even like your fullback on one side might be given far more defensive instruction than your fullback on the other side. He'll be given like, if you look, I used to always find it really interesting watching United when John O'Shea and Cristiano Ronaldo were there. Like if Cristiano Ronaldo started on the left wing, John O'Shea was left back. If Cristiano Ronaldo started on the right wing, John O'Shea was right back.
So was John O'Shea the secret to Cristiano Ronaldo's
well, I'd say
early
Alex,
success?
I'd say Alex would probably say that there's something to that, all right, because here we go now, actually. Look, Theo Walcott off, Seamus Coleman on. So I think that's definitely a good sign for Seamus. Sidibe will move back up to the right wing now, and I think you'll see that's the way they'll start the next day out.
You do not expect the fullback to be brought on unless there's an injury. And
he's just been, he seems to have been really peripheral in the game, and Sidibe was absolutely excellent on the right side of midfield in the Stevens Day game, so he was. So that's a good sign, and again, two right backs playing in the same team, you know, will we see it ourselves?
On Carlo Ancelotti, though, another thing that Pat Nevin was saying to me, of course, is that, like, Carlo Ancelotti's the kind of guy, he's not a long-haul manager. So do they already kind of have to have in the back of their minds an idea of what happens next?
I think that's what they could be doing. They could be saying, we look...
And not necessarily because it's going to end in tears, but because he could do fantastic things over the course of a 2-year spell.
But he admits that himself. Carlo Ancelotti's... I don't know whether he's more than one autobiography, but the book I read was called Quiet Leadership, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's probably in the top 3 football books I've ever read. It's really superb. I probably found it that way because I'd have a similar belief system to him, in that he's kind of all about the players, and whatever system suits the players, let's go with that system. And like he admits that when he came to Madrid, he wanted to play in a particular way, and after a couple of games, Ronaldo came to him and said, yeah, I don't really like this. And Ancelotti says, he's my best player. I need to get the most out of him. So I came up with it. He literally invented a whole different system just to try and get the most out of Ronaldo. But his book is brilliant. But he says in the book, he says, I'm now financially secure enough and of an age where I know going in that one way or another, this is going to end in 2 to 3 years, and it's my job to try and win as much as I can over those 2. He doesn't even see it as being sacked. He just sees it as the end of that period of his managerial life, on to the next one.
Is the thing to be worried about, though, with an attitude like that, is that he's going to put absolutely everything in, and his entire strategy is going to be about maximising what he can get out of his 2 to 3 years.
Well, I suppose that's why there needs to be somebody above him.
If he moves on to a better job in 2.5 years, having done a really good job, he might have brought a team as far as they can go, and it might be a tough one for someone else to come in and pick up.
Yeah, but if as far as you can go is that they're back on the cusp of qualifying for Champions Leagues like they used to, well then whoever the next manager coming in is, he's going to have an easier job in terms of trying to sign players, because they're going to be a more attractive team to sign for again, you know?
We don't think about how much of a basket case this whole job is as well. When you think,
I do, Johnny.
Yeah, you do.
Trust me, I do.
I was looking at him there on the sidelines. So it's like he's 60 years of age. So like he's there very well dressed on the sideline today, up at a game in the north of England. A couple of weeks ago, he was in his homeland managing Napoli and trying to deal with this bizarre kind of club versus player sort of row that went on, and like he's literally out of a job that's so significant, that Napoli job. He's gotten them into the Champions League last 16, and the next thing he's managing Everton, and you're just like, this is like it's nuts. Like we don't even think about how crazy the whole game is.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what his official title is. He used to be. Do you know Seamus Kelly? There's a lecturer over at UCD called Dr. Seamus Kelly. He's fairly high up in the sports studies side of things over there. And he's actually on very, very good terms with the guy who co-wrote Carlo Ancelotti's autobiography. So he brought him over very recently. He was doing a guest lecture at UCD, and Seamus invited myself and a few others up to it. And yeah, like he was just talking about how... he's got to the stage where he really doesn't, not that he doesn't care anymore, but you know what I mean, whereas 90% of managers
he's happy to enjoy it almost.
And even the end of it doesn't bother him anymore, I don't think. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas 90% of managers can't sleep at night, where you're getting towards the end of it.
That's a little bit strange in that, like, the whole point of management is it the day-to-day, or is it not? Like, how do we end up this season? Do Napoli win the Champions League? Do Napoli qualify for the Champions League?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, obviously he's absolutely going to be doing the very, very, very best job that he possibly can, and putting his absolute life into it. So he is. But he's not going to be fretting and sleepless nights and all that when it kind of comes to the end. It's just the end of that project on to the next. And wouldn't it be brilliant if all football managers could get to a stage where that's how they were looking at it, you know?
Goal at Vicarage Road, Watford against Aston Villa. With the details, Andrew Cheal.
Watford 2, Aston Villa 0, just a couple of minutes after they'd gone down to 10 men with Mariappa being red carded. Watford have doubled their advantage. Troy Deeney broke clear into the box. He was brought down by the Lewis with a blatant shove in the shoulder. Deeney went to ground. VAR confirmed the referee's initial decision, which was to point to the spot, and up stepped Troy Deeney to score emphatically from 12 yards. Villa complained that Targett was down injured at the time that Deeney broke clear. Referee completely ignoring that complaint, and VAR confirming his penalty decision. Deeney the scorer. It's Watford 2, Aston Villa 0.
And there has actually been another goal in that game. We can go back and get that one again from Andrew Cheal.
Watford 3, Aston Villa 0. Game over surely, even though Watford are down to 10 men. A fast break down the left-hand side. Deeney fed Capoue. Capoue's left foot cross was inch perfect for Ismail Sarr coming in at the far post to rifle it home with his right foot. VAR checked the goal for a possible foul, decided nothing untoward had happened. The goal was given and confirmed. It's Watford 3, Aston Villa 0.
And that is where we are going to take an ad break for the time being. There are, coming into the last 15 minutes or so in all of the 3 o'clock games. We'll bring you team news as well on the... we'll bring you team news as well on the 5:30 kickoffs. Before we take our ad break, though, we are going to go back to St Mary's, where there's been a second goal this afternoon, and Peter Hood can tell us the details.
Southampton 1, Crystal Palace 1. The Saints' top scorer, Danny Ings, for his 14th of the season after a dreadful mistake by Kelly. He played the ball across his own defensive line and let in Ings, who slid the ball home. It's 1-1.
All right, on that note, we will take our ad break. We are with you through till 5 o'clock then after that.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
Get the latest News Talk podcasts at newstalk.com and on the News Talk app.
Exciting afternoons with Harvey Norman. Bring the cinema home with an ultra-high-definition smart TV and surround sound from Harvey Norman. The cinema experience with no queues and no trailers.
Go, Harvey, go! Thinking of a new car for the new year? On Dundeal, it's never been easier, with Ireland's widest selection of cars from trusted dealerships. Whether it's warranties or monthly finance, we have every option available for you. Thinking of changing your car? Think Dundeal, Ireland's largest car showroom, in the palm of your hand.
This New Year first fortnight invites you to be here with us. There's no need to feel the blues or loneliness which happens post-Christmas. In January, we've over 100 events in 67 venues across 17 counties, including music, sport, poetry, comedy, theatre, film and more. Everyone feels alone from time to time. We aim to reframe how people perceive mental health. It's in community we can find our true wealth. First fortnight, Mental Health Arts Festival invites you to bring a friend or come alone, but come along. It can't go wrong. It's all good. It's all right. First Fortnight is back to delight. More information at firstfortnight.ie.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes, but for you and the community. For families, check out our kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. For adults, why not join our newly refurbished gym with a 50-metre swimming pool, or book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, sports pitches and courts. And for companies, check out our team building days, conference facilities and events. All this and more at sportirelandcampus.ie.
We've helped perfect electric cars. We've broken a world record. We've saved 6.5 billion litres of water. What have you done today? We've done amazing things at Intel, and we want to do more of them, which means we'll need some more brilliant people. So if you're an engineer or technician and you'd like to do something amazing, we'd love to hear from you. Just look for us at intel.ie/join us. Intel. Amazing works here.
All you need this Christmas is carry-out off-licence. Make your money go further with our incredible deals on box beers, multi-pack cans and wines from all over the world. Plus our amazing Eastern European selection, such as the fantastic Perla beer range, now in stock. Fill your cupboard for less this festive season. Carry out off-licence. Simply better wines and beers. Simply better value. Enjoy alcohol responsibly. Visit drinkaware.ie.
The new place to buy Peugeot in South Dublin, Sandyford Motor Centre. More Irish drivers than ever are choosing Peugeot. Test drive the award-winning Peugeot 2008 and 3008 and the 7-seater Peugeot 5008 at Sandyford Motor Centre. The new home for Peugeot in South Dublin.
The Arnott's winter sale is now on, with up to 50% off almost everything. The perfect excuse to get anything you want at the price you want. Whether it's sprucing up your home, updating your New Year wardrobe, or you just want to treat yourself. Shop the Arnott's winter sale with up to 50% off across all departments. In-store and online at arnotts.ie.
The Ryanair seat sale is now on, with up to €30 off return flights on over 1 million seats to Europe's best sun, beach and city destinations. Book today on Ryanair.com and fly with Europe's lowest emissions, lowest fares airline. Limited availability. See Ryanair.com.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
All right, we're heading into the final 10-15 minutes or so in our 3 o'clock kickoffs at the moment. Everton leading Newcastle 2-1 at St James's Park. Southampton 1, Crystal Palace 1 and Watford 3, Aston Villa 0. We do have time though for an update at St James's Park, and with the details of that, Stephen Goldsmith.
Newcastle 1, Everton 2. An open game of football as you'll ever see. Both sides taking control for spells and really pushing the other back before switching again. Calvert-Lewin has scored 2 for the visitors, both from close range. The second, he was completely unmarked from a ball into the box. Questions will be asked by Steve Bruce there. Fabian Schär had levelled things up, sweeping home from an Andy Carroll knockdown. Both still fancy this. Newcastle 1, Everton 2.
Off the Ball 2019 IMRO Radio Awards Sports Programme of the Year.
Salah takes the shot. Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season.
Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
Offtheball.com, best online publisher at the 2019 Spider Awards.
A big breaking story on offtheball.com for you this morning. We have the very latest on the Mayo leaks. We now know what went on in that secretive Mayo County Board meeting.
2019 Irish Sponsorship Awards Best Radio Sponsorship, OTB Super Value GAA Roadshows.
Well, when she comes back, get your arse back here, he said. Starr is out sitting on the swing and Darren O'Sullivan is pushing him.
OTB Sports Radio, live online 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
How do you like that, lads?
Yeah.
You were all a big part of a big year on OTV.
Oh, yeah.
All went well for you.
What was your favourite Saturday afternoon in here?
Genie, you're putting me on the spot now. Every
There's
Saturday,
so
any
many.
Saturday afternoon in the presence
Exactly,
of Johnny
yeah.
Ward is a good Saturday
That's
afternoon,
true.
isn't it?
That is true, yeah.
And Daniel, of course.
Johnny, while we were in ads as well, you said you had a text come in. Going back
Yeah.
to the Paul Pogba discussion.
It's been two really insecure people, desperate for their names to be read out on air, and that is Neil and Jen from Fairhouse. But Neil is actually a Man United fan, and on the Pogba debate, he's like, how much money would he realistically get for him, and would you trust Woodward to invest it wisely? That I don't know. So I don't know. There's always that thing as well. If you get a lot of money for a player, the club that you're bargaining with wants more the next time you buy a player.
I wouldn't trust Ed Woodward to invest 50 quid wisely.
No. I don't know. There's a strange dynamic around Man United in terms of the way the club is structured. Do they care that much that they get to the Champions League? Because it's all about the share price and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a dispiriting thing to support them at times, I would imagine. We've had various guests on from Daniel Harris and so on over the season that would they kind of give this, they're a bit exasperated by it all, and they must look at it. As much as Ken Early had a good piece the other day when he was on about the American ownership of Liverpool, and they've kind of learned along the way that they embrace models of like stats to buy players, Moneyball and all that, but they also married it with kind of more pragmatic, old school.
The gut instinct.
Yeah. And like they ultimately, Manchester United have a succession of managers who failed. Liverpool have had one, and it's like, how important is the manager? The difference Klopp has made to Liverpool is, he has to go right up there with Shankly and Paisley in terms of the actual, like Paisley obviously took over from Shankly when he'd a ready-made, really good team.
Yeah, because I don't think you could say like the current Liverpool team, anyone else could be in there and doing that. Like they are exactly what a Klopp team is, like, aren't they?
Yeah, and there's Kenny Dalglish and Hodgson who, and obviously the Leicester boss as well. So you're like, you'd managers who, and in fairness, they made a brave call in sacking him as well. Like, what was it, like 16 months after they were so close to win the league, Rodgers was gone, and they needed a bit of convincing on Klopp. It's one of these sliding doors moments. Imagine if they...
And you talk about
2.5 years defending was all over the place.
You talk about the Moneyball approach, like... You hear the much derided expected goals stat and expected points stat, which regularly gets slated. But in those kind of early pieces, it was basically during his poor season, the poor season obviously that Klopp had. Apparently Liverpool weren't concerned by that at all because his expected points tally was way, way higher than what his actual points tally was, and therefore they said, oh no, look, he's just suffered horrendous bad luck. He hasn't turned into a bad manager overnight, and seems to have worked out quite well.
I think that's what kind of gets the people angry so much about the expected goals and expected points and stuff, that like it does actually mean something.
No, it don't.
You know, that's kind of what gets them so angry about it.
When Shane was managing in his final season, second last season for Galway United, he had to sell a player obviously in the middle of the season. But I think you said Galway United were the highest points tally ever of a team that got relegated. And ultimately, that doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is history is written by the victors.
Did you get relegated? Didn't you get relegated?
And this is it. So Galway United got relegated last day of the season, played great football. It was one of the best teams Galway probably had, but got relegated. And do you sometimes think like, well, the public judged me this way, the media judged me this way, but I know that actually what we did was good, and I wouldn't look on it as an out-and-out failure, because I know that we were a little bit unlucky.
Oh yeah, not to get too wishy-washy on things, right? But regardless of whether things go right or things go wrong, I'd be big. It's hard to say the word reflection without sounding like a bit of a knob, really, isn't it? So it is. But you have to.
Were there learnings, Shane? Were there learnings?
Oh,
it's like when a politician is like basically exposed as having lied, and he goes, actually, on mature reflection.
Yeah. So I could sit down. Having got the boot in the second season, I could sit down
by mutual consent.
By mutual, got the boot by mutual consent. Sorry,
he resigned by mutual consent.
That's what the official phrase was. I could write out exactly where I'd gone wrong and all the things I'd do differently the next time and all the lessons I learned, most importantly. The end of the first season, I was kind of scratching my head because I felt we hadn't done a massive amount wrong, if that makes sense. But then you never like hearing somebody whinging about their luck, and that's all essentially that I can do is whinge about the luck.
Shane had a team that played great football but got relegated, and it was very enjoyable to watch. But here he is on News Talk instead, on Off the Ball.
Football's loss, off the ball's gain.
Football's loss is off the ball's gain.
Team news is in. Team news is in for the 2 5:30 kickoffs. We're going to start over at Carrow Road, Norwich and Spurs. With that is Ian Beach.
Both teams make 4 changes from the sides that played 2 days ago. For Norwich, out go Byram, Cantwell and McLean. In their places, Vrancic, Hernandez, Stiepermann and Lewis. And for Spurs, out go Sanchez in defence, Winks and Sissoko and Moura from midfield. In come Christian Eriksen and Ndombele, Juan Foyth at the back and Giovanni Lo Celso. That's Norwich against Spurs at Carrow Road.
And at the same time then as well, West Ham are hosting Leicester City. The team news there is with Joe Rawson.
There's some big team news for West Ham United after an absence of months because of an injury. Goalkeeper Lucas Fabianski returns to the starting 11. The question is, will he make the difference to Manuel Pellegrini's struggling side? His inclusion is one of 7 changes from the team that lost to Palace on Boxing Day. Anderson, Lanzini, Sanchez, Diop, Fredericks and Masuaku also come in. As for Leicester, well, the busy festive schedule has prompted Brendan Rodgers to make 9 changes to the 11 that lost to Liverpool on Boxing Day. Only Kasper Schmeichel and Johnny Evans keep their place. Jamie Vardy isn't even on the bench. At the London Stadium, it's West Ham United against Leicester City.
Cheers to Brendan Rodgers there. I have 3 Leicester players in my fantasy football team and he hasn't picked one of them.
Text here from Stephen. Leicester are the most overrated side of the half season. Underlying numbers aren't impressive for a second place side. They'll finish 5th in my opinion.
I don't know if they're overrated in that. I think most people would say they've been in a false position. But if today goes a little bit awry, you're just wondering. You couldn't even bank on them finishing in the top 4 at the moment, and I think that would be a great achievement from Rodgers if he could finish top 4.
They're not built up just about enough of a cushion that they've
10 points between themselves and Spurs, like Wolves, I suppose.
They were very poor against Liverpool. It was exposed in the match the day afterwards. There was no real press from them, created next to nothing. I don't know. I think there's a lot of upside for Spurs and Man United in terms of their second half of the season, and Wolves.
Mm-hmm. If you were to call it right now, who do you think is getting there?
I think Leicester will qualify for the Champions League. I think they're going through a bit of a blip up until this recent run of games. I was really impressed with them. Really impressed with them. I've seen them on a couple of occasions. I thought they were really, really well organised. Some excellent players. I mean, James Maddison, he's hard to like. I don't know whether it's his hair or his accent or I don't know.
If you're talking about accents, how are you likeable? Bloody hell. You're from Laois.
Absolutely awful comment. We don't have an accent, therefore we get away with it.
I'd actually put this to the man to my right here. Neil doesn't really have a strong accent, but Shane, you do have an accent.
Anyway, back to James Maddison. Leave me alone. He's playing absolutely superb football. I mean, I think his assists since the start of last season, never mind this year, so something like over the last year and a half, like he's way out. He's way out. He's in front. He's been absolutely brilliant.
I think in the most assists in the league, I think Robertson and TAA are in the top 4.
Yeah,
which is off the charts. So both fullbacks. Yeah. Just redefining the role of the fullback in the modern game.
It's. I mean, you're absolute. If you're an opposition winger, what a horrible shift you're going to have for the afternoon trying to follow those two all day.
I might just throw out another text here. We kind of briefly mentioned him at the top of the show. But lads, I just want to get your thoughts on Aaron Connolly. After the Spurs game when he scored 2 goals, we hyped him up big time, but since then he hasn't gone on to score in the league since. Did we get a bit overboard, or do you think his performances have been good even without the goals since? That's from Kieran in Galway.
Yeah, Shane is probably better judge to answer this. I've been a small bit disappointed in him. I think Spurs were probably at a particular low at that point, and obviously Pochettino went shortly afterwards, but I still have huge faith in him. I just think it's probably part of his development. He's also
There's a bit of rawness, I think, in the finishing.
There is rawness, and he's also in a side that, he's in a side probably that is up against it in a lot of games. I think he does need time.
He's a kid. He's going to be extremely inconsistent. Extremely inconsistent. I thought he was decent against Spurs the other day, to be honest with you. So I did. And look, he's going to have good days. He's going to have bad days. And I mean, you can't judge Aaron Connolly really as a player until about 4 years' time.
I don't think this guy is. I think he's just kind of putting the question out, Yeah, I think he's almost wondering himself.
Now I'll tell you, it's interesting that his name comes up as we're talking about accents, because that's definitely a bit iffy. So it was.
Ryan Manning, bloody hell, yeah. The lads that go off to England and kind of have an English accent straight away.
Do you get much stick in Galway for coming back with a Dublin accent?
I don't have a Dublin accent. Bear in mind, I've been in Dublin longer than I've been in Galway at this stage.
Posh Galway, then, is it?
Is Montbellew posh Galway? Newbridge? I don't know.
Couple of games tomorrow. We mentioned Liverpool and Wolves. That's going to be the second of our 2 games tomorrow on Off the Ball. We're going to be on the air between 1 and 7 o'clock. That game is a 4:30 kickoff. You're going to have Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr at Anfield watching that one. First up, though, an interesting enough looking game as well. Arsenal hosting Chelsea at 2 o'clock. That's going to be with Dave McIntyre and Gary Breen at the Emirates Stadium. Shane, you were watching Arsenal for us on St. Stephen's Day. What were your thoughts in the early days of Mikel Arteta?
Really up and down. First 20-25 minutes, absolutely excellent. Slacked off massively. It was the real half of 2 halves, I suppose, so it was. And as soon as the goal goes in, all the old body language comes back and they're pointing at each other and they're throwing the arms up. But they improved again in the second half. I don't know how often Arsenal would have come from behind to get something from a game this season up until now. So it's interesting that they did manage to do that, and unsurprisingly then that's exactly the points that Arteta wanted to harp on about, that they'd shown fight and they'd managed to claw their way back into the game. Arsenal's performance was pretty much bang in line throughout the game with Ozil's performance. He was outstanding for the first 25 minutes. Now, I'd question how poor Bournemouth were in trying to shut him down. They really made life extremely easy on him, but he was superb for the first 25 minutes. And then he disappeared and he started having to wander out into the wide areas. And in other words, it appears as though there's a bit too much of a reliance on him at the moment. The other name that I found interesting in that game is Granit Xhaka.
And it looks like he's on the way out.
It looks like
now.
He could be on the way out. Yeah. And I don't know. I probably hadn't seen a huge amount of Arsenal until we played against Granit Xhaka in Dublin, where all you were really picking up on up until then was kind of social media negativity by Arsenal fans towards him. He was so far the best player on the pitch in that game. It was absolutely...
In both games, actually, against us. Just like...
On a different level, a complete and utter different level. So it kind of got me a little bit more tuned in then to, well, is he not playing to that level when he's playing for Arsenal, or why is he seems to be so unloved by Arsenal? And again, the other day, I thought he was the player on the pitch, Ozil aside, but probably more consistent than Ozil, who looked like he had real quality. Like when he passes the ball, he passes with pace, he was fizzing it around the place, and I don't know, maybe I've just been unlucky that on a couple of occasions I've seen him, he has looked decent, and maybe, I'm maybe only seeing 10% of their games, and maybe he's awful in the other 90%, but I can't really understand where the dislike for him comes amongst the Arsenal crowd.
I think a new manager as well probably needs to make a statement, and that's partly it. It's like, listen, that's it. I'm
do you think it's Arteta who's pushing this, or do you think the way Xhaka has kind of gone over the last couple of months, it looked pretty much that day when he was substituted and threw the armband down. Yeah. Within a few days after that, he was very unhappy with the way the fans treated him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it felt like he was making his decision almost there and then, that he's looking for something.
It could be that as well. I do think he's. I'm like Shane. I was at the game in Dublin, and I was sick. What was the stat that night? I think he had 70 passes and Horan had 27.
I think he could have had more passes than the three Irish midfielders put together.
Yeah.
I think something like that.
That happens a lot, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's fair enough. But no, it's
hopefully not in the future.
Is that a fair barometer of Granit Xhaka as a player?
But look, the mad thing is, I'd be looking at him and I'd be thinking he could be for Arsenal what Arteta was for Arsenal.
Yeah, there's similarities.
I think he could do that role really, really well for them. Sit there and dictate the tempo and maybe put a few more attacking players in around him. But look, it's his first game. He would have only had probably maybe 2, maximum 3 training sessions with them. He wasn't going to be able to do a massive amount. I'll tell you, I gave him an awful hard time on air, so I did. But Lacazette was awful, absolutely awful. And it's one thing for a player in your team to be awful, but the fact that he was playing centre forward and being useless up there, meaning that Aubameyang, who is their star quality player in my opinion, had to ship himself out to the left wing and play out there. I mean, Lacazette got 4 goal scoring chances in the game that Aubameyang would have had a hat-trick from. I'm pretty sure Aubameyang would have had a hat-trick from. And if anybody, look, if Arteta wants to lay down the law and try and put his stamp on things and fire a big name out the door, it's not Xhaka that should be going out, it's Lacazette without doubt, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, full time's coming in at the moment. We're going to start off our roundup at St Mary's, Southampton and Crystal Palace. How's that finished, Peter Hood?
Southampton 1, Crystal Palace 1. A game of fine margins. The first goal was scored by Palace when James Tompkins headed in a free kick from Mihajlovic and gave Palace a lead that they didn't probably deserve, but they grew into that lead, and only a silly pass in the second half by Kelly let in Ings and transformed the game. The striker took the chance, and it was only down to the keeper, David Guetta, making fine saves to keep parity. Finished Southampton 1, Palace 1.
Full-time whistle also gone at St James's Park, where Everton have held on and beaten Newcastle. Watching that one was Stephen Goldsmith.
Newcastle 1, Everton 2. A cracker at St James's, both sides going toe-to-toe all game. Everton drew first blood, Calvert-Lewin stabbing home inside the box at a time they looked in full control. Both sides kept attacking, and when Schär levelled for Newcastle, whose game this was to be anyone's guess. Calvert-Lewin decided it for Everton, his second, another close ranger, completely unmarked in the box, perhaps reflective of a game that could have finished 5 each. Newcastle 1, Everton 2.
Still waiting on the other final full-time report to come in. I think they are actually still playing, or the whistle has just gone actually at Vicarage Road, where Watford have beaten Aston Villa by 3-0. And guys, that is actually, to make things quite interesting down towards the end of the table. Norwich now will have dropped to the foot of the table there on 12 points. They play Spurs at 5:30. Although that would be a game extra than Watford. Watford have moved up to 19th place. They're 1 point better off on 13 points. Then a 5-point gap now to Aston Villa, who remain 18th. West Ham then 1 point better off on 19. Bournemouth on 20. Southampton on 22. And then you're up to Brighton on 23 points. So very, very tight at the moment. And we do actually have that full-time report from Vicarage Road. We can hear about it from Watford, Aston Villa, Andrew Cheal.
Watford 3, Aston Villa 0. Watford thoroughly deserving the points. They were ahead in the first half, courtesy of Troy Deeney snapping up the loose ball after a half save by Heaton from Doucouré. Foster in the Watford goal had already saved absolutely superbly from Wesley's downward header. Early in the second half, Watford defender Mariappa was sent off, but Deeney's penalty and Sarr's excellently controlled right foot volley ensured a Watford win. Watford 3, Aston Villa 0.
Nigel Pearson, what a start, huh?
Yeah, he's flying, isn't he? It's definitely very worrying for Villa. I mean, Villa were kind of doing all right a couple of weeks ago, and they've been sucked right down. West Ham as well, when you see that Leicester lineup, With West Ham being at home, it's a big opportunity for them to try and...
Well, you consider how well West Ham started the season as well. Actually, this form the last 2-3 months is shocking.
Yeah, they've been really, really poor. They've been awful, really. So they have. As I say, they need to really go and try and take an advantage of such a weakened Leicester side. But yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting down there. I mean, you talk about teams going through form. You were saying that, I think you used the example of Hull when you were talking about what can still happen to Sheffield United. How high were Norwich after half a dozen games? They got off to an absolute flying start in the Premier League, didn't they? They looked really, really good for the first few weeks. Pookie was banging in goals right, left and centre, and they're now, 7 points from safety? It doesn't look great for them at the moment, does it?
It did seem surprising at the time how well they'd started.
It did.
They didn't invest much in the summer or anything like that as well.
Yeah, the one team that I really, really hope don't get dragged into all that is Bournemouth. Because
you're a big fan of how
they've always gone through these spells every season where they've lost kind of like 5 out of 6 or something like that, but they'll go out and they'll win 4 out of 5, and all of a sudden they just push themselves out of danger again.
How is he not in a big job? Is it that he's too like grounded in what he's doing himself, or is it that he's a boring 4-letter name and he's not like what was it, like Sam Allardyce was like, if I were called Allardyce, I'd be getting all these big jobs, but like why? Like
no, Sam, you wouldn't.
Why? I don't know. Anyhow, like I know you're one to name drop, but you did actually do a coaching course with him, and in fairness, you were saying you could kind of see it. Like
it's always really, really difficult when ridiculous overachievement becomes the norm, and him consistently having Bournemouth where they've been, firstly bring them up through the divisions in the manner that he did, and then bring them into the Premier League where effectively they've never been involved in a relegation scrap since he brought them into the Premier League. And now it's kind of, he's not doing a great job with them this year because he's 16th at the moment. I mean, my God, Bournemouth should be bottom of the Premier Division every year for the last few years. He's doing a phenomenal job, and yeah, fingers crossed he does do what you've just said and goes another run and gets away from there, because he's a superb manager.
All right, lads. On that note, thanks a million for joining us, Johnny Ward and Shane Keegan. Happy New Year to you. Enjoy your New Year's. We'll see you on the other side. That's it for this Saturday and Off the Ball.
See you on the other side.
On the other side. 2020.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
I'll be back tomorrow, though. Don't worry. We are on the air at 1 o'clock until 7. 2 Premier League games. Arsenal against Chelsea, followed by Liverpool against Wolves. We'll speak to you then.